back to Night Freak Asylum, everybody. We're super excited to be talking about the Halloween Horror Nights 2018 Hollywood Scare Zones. There are 5 of them, and they've been announced along with the launch of the website. We'll also be addressing the sort of unofficial overlying theme that I think will be part of the event this year. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. There are a lot of really interestingly themed scare zones this year. The first one that was announced is called Holidays in Hell. So Holidays in Hell is going to be based off of the calendar year. We're going to be going through New Year's, Valentine's Day, St. Patty's Day. We're going to be going through Easter, and so on and so forth. Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving, the Day of the Dead, and then, you know, of course, there's the cycle. But that's going to be over where Urban Inferno was last year, and I'm really excited to see this one because of the concept art that was released, or that was shown during one of the panels that John Murdy and Chris Williams were at when they revealed this scare zone, and it was the first scare zone revealed for Halloween Horror Nights 2018 Hollywood. So let's read the description here. Holidays in Hell. Every day is Halloween in this irreverent send-up of the holidays of the year. Encounter creepy cupids, leprechauns, and evil Easter bunnies as you take a terrifying trip through these psychotic seasonal celebrations. Screaming all the way. Again, I'm really excited to see the creature design on this. I'm particularly excited to see the leprechauns. Upon seeing those on the reveal, and also Father Time. Now, Father Time is a really interesting design in the sense that they sort of threw him together with all these an amalgamation of different sort of concepts that you take from different types of mythical beings, and I thought it was really cool. And he's going to be the main stilt walker, the giant stilt walker, and Krampus is going to be the smaller stilt walker. Also excited to see Krampus. Krampus has its own original design this year, not dissimilar from the Dark Christmas design, but again, a really cool rock starish kind of twist that the sort of devils had last year in Urban Inferno. So you know how they sort of looked like 80s rappers. Not rappers, rock stars. So I'm super excited for that. And so let's move on to our next scare zone. Our next scare zone is going to be Toxic Tunnel. So Toxic Tunnel is a scare zone that we got last year, and I'm sure it's going to be in the same spot again, otherwise they wouldn't call it Toxic Tunnel. And it is essentially a biohazard leak or something like that, like an industrial accident where it sort of turned these workers into savage man beasts. Let's take a look at the description here. Toxic Tunnel. There's been a terrible industrial accident deep inside the underground utility tunnel. The noxious vapors, that were released have transformed the emergency workers into radioactive monsters. There you go. Filled with an uncontrollable rage and hell-bent on our destruction. So again, this was one that we saw last year. I'm not overly excited for this. I thought Toxic Tunnel was pretty cool last year, but Toxic Tunnel and anything that's in that sort of transitional tunnel that leads down to the metro sets is what it is. It's a transitional scare zone. So there isn't going to be a lot going on as far as that. Mainly it's strobe lights, loud music, and guys walking around. So there isn't a real sequence to it. That you're just walking, you're funneled through this little tunnel, and yeah, it's still cool. I'm still excited to see it. I'm just excited that we have 5 scare zones this year as opposed to 3. And we'll also talk about my grievances with last year as far as the number of scare actors that were present last year. Or not present. So yeah, Toxic Tunnel, alright addition. I definitely think that they could have done something else without having to cut too much into the budget. But again, I know nothing. Our next scare zone on the list, and I'm sort of reading from the bottom up here on the Halloween Horror Nights website, is Hell's Harvest. Hell's Harvest is sort of going to dip into the origins of Halloween, or at least the sort of pagan side of Halloween. We all know where Halloween came from, but it's going to sort of delve into that and throw its own twist on that. So let's take a look at the description as we do with the rest. Hell's Harvest. Enter a pagan harvest festival where the dark spirit of Halloween was born. The streets are filled with strange, bewitched dolls brought to life through dark magic. This army of evil dolls are looking for the next victim for their human sacrifice. Will it be you? So yeah, it's going to be. It's definitely playing into something that we'll touch upon again later. But this sort of theme of Halloween, the harvest origin side of Halloween, that sort of sort of ancient side of Halloween. And the only thing that this year is missing really is Halloween, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah, super excited. We're going to see an army of evil dolls. That's never a loss. Evil dolls will scare the crap out of just about anyone. And even if you're not particularly scared of evil dolls, I mean, how could you not be? But yeah, I definitely think it's going to be fun. I'm interested to see the designs on the dolls. I know that Mr. Murdy and Mr. Williams will do something that's not your generic sort of doll, especially with a title like Hell's Harvest. How is he gonna fit that in? How is he gonna intertwine the sort of evil doll and Halloween kind of themes? So yeah, I'm really excited to see the design choices on that one, and this is actually one of my most anticipated scare zones of this year. So in addition to the maze this year, we are also getting a trick-or-treat themed scare zone. Now Orlando got one like this last year, and now both of us are getting mazes, and Hollywood is now getting a scare zone. So let's talk about this. So, Trick or Treat. Let's read the description. The frightening characters from writer-director Michael Dougherty's anthology horror film Trick or Treat have descended on the small western town of Warren, Ohio, during their annual Halloween celebrations. Lurking in the fog are vampires, werewolves, zombie schoolchildren, and Sam, the vengeful spirit of Halloween, who will stop at nothing to ensure his rules for the season are being upheld. And I love it. How could you not? So in addition to getting our maze, we're going to get a really cool scare zone. I saw some of the concept art for the scare zone at Midsummer Scream, or at least some of the concepts that he at least I think we saw some like busts and different things, and I believe that was for the scare zone. But regardless, we are going to see half-transformed werewolf girls in the scare zone. This is what John Murdy had confirmed, and I believe we're also going to be seeing some of the kids from the bus massacre as well. So overall, very excited to see this scare zone, and again, adding to the theme of your classic Halloween. So let's move on to the next. This next scare zone is entitled Monster Masquerade. Now, Monster Masquerade sort of is going to play into the Universal Classic Monster stuff. Now, I know that we didn't get a maze announced yet for the Universal Classic Monsters, but those of us who are in the community are almost certain that it's coming to the event this year, especially with the Halloween Horror Nights construction updates. You can see sort of like this large castle build almost, with a sort of classic sort of science fiction-y antenna on top, surrounded by dead trees. That can only mean, a couple things, but what it basically means is Frankenstein's castle. And I think that it would be an obvious choice for John Murdy, considering how inspired he was by Frankenstein. The Universal monsters in general, but Frankenstein as his main inspiration. So let's talk about Monster Masquerade, and let's read the description. Monster Masquerade. Step into the fog-enshrouded streets of Old Paris. And enter the dawns of the dead. A macabre monster masquerade ball inspired by the original classic monster movies, The Phantom of the Opera and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. So, we are having classic monsters this year. Not confirmed to be a maze yet, but I guess this would almost sort of push that theory further, or that sort of speculation further, that we're getting Universal Classic Monsters, because, if you're going to have a scare zone based off of the Universal Classic Monsters, but only using 2 of them, he's got to have something else that involves his favorites and that involve the classic ones. And I think that the real classic ones, the ones that are all included in the DVD specials, that being Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, the Mummy, and the Bride of Frankenstein. I think that those will be the main attractions, and that will be the maze. But I definitely think that this is going to be a welcome addition to the Halloween Horror Nights Scare Zone roster, and playing into the theme again, where you have that sort of classic Halloween feel. Now, I think sort of over the past century, Halloween has sort of been shaped by the movies that come out during those generations, and definitely back then, back in the 30s and the 20s and 30s and stuff like that, you had these classic monster movies that sort of shaped a generation of horror, and in doing so went hand in hand with shaping a generation of Halloween. But these classic monsters are classics for a reason. They stood the test of time as those quintessential Halloween monsters. And of course, it being a very, very strong Halloween-themed event this year, not to say that, it is Halloween Horror Nights, but you sort of have different themes over the years. And when you look at 2016, that was like the year of the slashers. There were so many slashers that year. And then the next year, there wasn't really a big theme there, but you can sort of see a pattern this year. And I think Monster Masquerade really plays into that, and I think that at least we're assuming, the soon-to-be-announced Universal Classic Monsters Maze will play into that as well. So those have been my thoughts on the Scare Zones, and sort of spoke about the announcement, and also sort of talking about the unofficial overlying theme of the event this year, which would be classic Halloween. And I think that the only thing that they're really missing was Halloween from last year. I think that Halloween from last year was a little bit misplaced, and it could have done so much better this year, especially since they have more Scare Zones and they are likely to be stocked up more with scare actors. And I do happen to know that there were a lot of people auditioning to be scare actors this year. So I have high hopes for these Scare Zones. And also touching upon last year, my grievances with last year was the complete lack of Scare Zones in certain areas. And not Scare Zones, but scare actors. Like in Halloween specifically, there were not that many people in that scare actors in that Scare Zone. You walk through and maybe 6 or 7 people at once to terrorize all the people that are coming through the gate is like, it's pretty little. You didn't have that constant anxiety that you felt when the park is saturated with scare actors and the event is saturated with scare actors. So that was one of my grievances, and I really hope that there are more scare actors this year. So yeah, those have been my thoughts. Let me know what you all think. What you're excited for, which ones you are excited for. Me particularly, I'm excited for Monster Masquerade and Hell's Harvest as the Scare Zones. Not only because they are original Scare Zones, but they are Halloween themed and movie monster themed. I really love it, and sort of movie monsters go hand in hand with Halloween nowadays. So you think of vampires, werewolves, Dracula, stuff like that, Frankenstein. It's one of those classic Halloween feels that has become sort of part of that Halloween culture, and you can't think of Halloween without thinking of the Universal Classic Monsters anymore. So I'm super excited to see those. And the Phantom of the Opera and the Hunchback of Notre Dame, of course, they don't get as much recognition as some of the other main Universal Classic Monsters, so I'm really glad that they are getting at least some sort of recognition, even if it's sort of outside of the realm of a maze. It's still connecting that, and yeah, I'm just really glad to see them back. So there are 2 more announcements to be made for Halloween Horror Nights this year. Check out or look out for my Jabberwockies video. I'm going to be talking about, yes, the show Jabberwockies, which we are getting again at Halloween Horror Nights this year. So this has been James Young from Night Freak Asylum, and I'll see you in the next videos. There's 2 more announcements, and look out for my videos talking about those. So I'll see you later.